Hello from all of us here. A very, very happy new year to you. Welcome to 2014's first edition of the France 24 debate. January the 1st, much more than a date on the calendar for citizens of Romania and Bulgaria, now free to come as they please inside the European Union. And yes, that does include Britain, where many conservatives resisted what they feared as an open door to scroungers intent on benefits and handouts. So far, no mass invasion, and what may seem like a familiar argument to those who remember Poland's entry into the EU. There is an added twist, however. Europe's Roma population, unwelcome in their countries of birth, increasingly resented in Paris, London, and Berlin. In the run-up to next May's European elections, it's not just British conservatives they're attacking, right? The German conservative CSU party, its platform also bashing Brussels over immigration policy, triggering discomfort inside Angela Merkel's newly formed Grand Coalition government. If coalitions in Britain and Germany are feeling the strain, it's because Europeans are deeply divided over whether the answer to the crisis is a lot more integration or a lot less. Today in the France 24 debate, are Romanians and Bulgarians unwelcome in Europe? With us to talk about it, Yves Pascual. He heads the European Migration and Diversity Program at the Brussels-based European Policy Center.
Good evening.
Thanks for stopping in Paris.
Thanks.
Oh, thanks as well, and a Happy New Year to Laurent Pinsol, a spokesperson for the, how should we put it, it's neo-Gaullist,
yes,
Debout la République party. How would you translate Debout la République?
Stand Up Republic.
Stand Up for the Republic, okay. And Samir Mili, welcome back as well.
Thank you.
You're the chair of La Voix des Roms. Tell us what La Voix des Roms is.
La Voix des Roms is an association, a Romani association based in Paris and active in France and also a bit in the European Union.
All right, the France 24 debate, where you can join the conversation on Facebook and on Twitter, and you have our hashtag F24debate. The day is 2 years old, but the argument is not going away in the British tabloids. The Daily Express this Thursday warning how new migrants could cost us billions. Benefits Britain, here we come, says another headline. At the start of the week, it was the Daily Mail touting on its front page the government's efforts to clamp down on health tourists. Yes, migrants will be charged for accidents and emergencies. Health tourists who, according to the paper, come to profit from healthcare in the UK. Even the Daily Mail, though, admits there's been, well, no mass rush at the airport so far. And travelers from Romania, well, they agree.
I don't think there'll be such a big exodus of Romanians coming and breaking down Heathrow Airport's doors. It's ridiculous. It's hysteria in the British media. But I think it will calm down in a while.
I don't think it will be as they make it out to be on British TV regarding Romanians and Bulgarians. People know how expensive it is over there and what the weather's like. Except for money, they've got nothing over there.
Yves Pascual, this argument that's going on across the channel, is it something that you're surprised about?
Not really. It's been some times now that we see the British government trying to address this issue and trying to be quite tough over immigration as a whole, and not only to EU citizens but also to third country nationals. So it is not a surprise to see, hear and read those kind of arguments.
Nonetheless, though, you've got David Cameron. He's in a coalition government with the pro-European party of Nick Clegg.
Yeah, but you've also seen that questions related to European Union integration are really dividing questions in the UK. And the question of the competence review is something that has blurred quite sensibly the debate in the UK. And we are facing now a really interesting year, not only the European Parliament's elections in June this year, which will perhaps see the arrival of a lot of anti-EU, anti-migrants MEPs, but we will see also what will the UK do with the bloc opt-out, which are all the rules related to security issues to which UK has to say whether they are staying into the EU cooperation or whether they are going outside of it, which is going to be also a major debate related to migration once.
With the conversation that's going on, and we'll talk about later about how it's also going on in Germany, not so much here in France, though, this conversation with the opening of the borders on January the 1st.
Yeah, not so much. It's rather surprising, given the fact that Nicolas Sarkozy in the 2012 election was talking a lot about reform of Schengen, and he was willing, or was saying to be willing, to push back the possibility for people from Romania and Bulgaria to move freely within the EU. Nevertheless, I think the French population is mainly in favor of a reform of Schengen and is not willing to let everybody move within the European Union.
Which brings us to the numbers, because, well, let's listen first to what a few weeks ago the British Prime Minister had to say. The government there pledging to slash number of immigrants from its current 182,000 a year to 100,000.
Look, I think we should learn the lessons of history. I think that the mistake the last government made of giving unfettered immediate access to UK labour markets to Poland and Hungary and the Baltic states in one go, I think was a huge mistake. You know, people simply didn't envisage that something like 1.5 million people were going to move across Europe because that step was taken.
Of course, the polls that showed up in Britain are hardly the welfare scroungers that the Daily Express was denouncing, seeing as they were all young people, able-bodied, who worked, and a lot of them went home when the Polish economy took off.
Yes, that's true. But there are also studies showing that immigration has a cost. The OECD has shown that, as a whole, for France, immigration has a small cost, not a huge cost, not the huge cost that Marine Le Pen is telling, and she's lying about it. Nevertheless, there is a cost. And on top of that, I think that currently immigration is difficult to understand for the population, the European population, because there is a lot of unemployment. And therefore, people do not understand why the governments let migrants come in, and therefore could sometimes take their jobs, even though from an economic perspective, the picture is not as bad as some are telling. Nevertheless, people do not understand there is a time of economic and cultural insecurity for the population. So I think the position of David Cameron is right, and because the British society, as the French society, is willing to reduce the influx of migrants to better integrate them.
Samir Mili?
It is very funny to listen from one side that the French or the British population cannot understand, etc., and on the other hand, to listen to the same person you said about the freedom of movement within the European Union and the Schengen and Nicolas Sarkozy's propaganda or campaign, electoral campaign, to reform the Schengen agreement. How can we make pedagogy with the people to understand while confounding these two totally different things? The Schengen agreement is nothing about immigrants. The Schengen agreement is an agreement for police and justice cooperation. It is just about the circulation of the individuals within a space which does not correspond to the European Union, which Switzerland, for instance, is a member of the Schengen space, but not a member of the European Union. So these are two totally different things. Then what happens since yesterday is that Romanians and Bulgarians are now full members of the European Union, which means that they can get an employment in other countries with no more restrictions that until 31st December 2013 were valid and which were put by national governments. Now, since yesterday, they cannot block anymore this possibility for their citizens to work. So the possibility also for them to stay.
And do you see, Samir, do you see at this point Romanians who are Francophiles coming in droves to France?
What for? Romanians could leave their country since 2002 without a visa. Without any visa, they could enter the Schengen space since 2002. Then in 2007, these two countries became members of the European Union, but with the transitory period which allowed the current member states not to recognize the right for these new citizens to work freely in France, in Germany, and so on. This possibility was until the end of 2013. The national governments cannot anymore stop this. The Romanians and Bulgarians can work, as the Hungarians and Poles and so before them. What is the problem with the employment? We are in crisis, that's for sure. No one is saying that it does not exist, but the reasons of the crisis are not the immigration. And the cost of the immigration, of course, you, as a political party, you have your own speech on it, but the reality, unfortunately, is quite different of what is told by politicians, including Marine Le Pen or UMP or other parties in France and elsewhere. The reality is that in France, for instance, as long as the Romani population is concerned, Romani population from Romania in France, those who are in a precarious situation, which were created by French law, because there were these restrictions to the employment, we are speaking about less than 17,000 people, including the babies. So we have at maximum, let's say, maybe 5,000 people who are looking for a job and who, since yesterday, can get a job without going through administrative procedures. That's it.
Let me ask you again. There was, when you were saying about the there are costs to open borders. Would you say, in the case of Poland, that the costs outweigh the benefits?
I don't know for sure, but there are several studies that have been weighting the cost and the benefits of immigration for countries. There are studies saying that it has a benefit for the society as a whole. Some others say that there is a cost. The OECD, I think, is in favor of migration, and they say that in France there is a slight cost. They say 10 billion euros per year of cost for France. It's far less than what Marine Le Pen is saying, because she's saying 35 or 70 billion euros. And I do agree that the cause of the crisis right now is not at all due to immigration. It's something else. Nevertheless, right now we have trouble to integrate the people that are in France. We also have a huge cultural insecurity. People are wondering whether the French Republican model is at risk or not with the influence of Islamists. And therefore, I think that we are right now at a time where we should reduce the influx of immigrants. We should not let our borders open. We should be out of Schengen. We should not allow any people from the EU working in France without any limits, in order to do a pause. I think that right now the French society and many societies in Europe are needing a pause in the influx of migrants.
Yves Pascoe?
Well, I think that this debate is really interesting because we are talking about also different things. We have to be clear about who we are talking about. Are we talking about migration, i.e. third country nationals, or are we talking about EU citizens? The question today, the 1st of January 2014, is related to EU citizens, Romanians and Bulgarians, who have acquired the right to have access to the labour market of all the member states, which is a right enshrined into the treaties, and no one will withdraw that right from them. And if you want now to put a cap on EU migrants moving to the UK, good luck. It won't be possible because the rules enshrined into the treaty and into the rules are not allowing any government to put a cap on EU citizens moving from one country to another. First point. Second point, third country nationals. This is the question of EU migration policy. How do we set up rules in order to define who is entitled to come in, to reside into the EU territory? We have to oppose, as you said. I am afraid that this is not what needs to be done, because we are facing a demographic shrinking, which is becoming very important about 2015, and we are also experiencing some skills and labor shortages at EU level, which are clear. And every single report written by anyone a little bit serious is clearly saying in the next couple of years we will need some extra workforce, and we will need to open legal channels of migration.
Outside the EU?
Outside the EU.
That may be true for the EU as a whole or some countries. It's wrong for France and for UK. And you know it because in France the population is increasing by 300,000 people every year. That's the trouble with an EU policy about migration. EU is diverse. The situation of the countries are completely different. The situation in Germany, where the population is shrinking and where unemployment is very low, one could understand that Germany lets its borders open in order to address the demographic challenge of that country. But the situation in France is completely different. Okay. We have 5 million people unemployed. We have a population that is increasing rather fast, 0.5% every year, and we have our population is going to increase until 2050, and therefore we do not have the need to have migrants to address our demographic challenge.
Not the need to have migrants. We're going to pick up on that point when we come back. Stay with us. You're watching the France 24 debate.